Hi, everybody. Welcome to WCA Extra. Starting a few minutes late today, but today is we're following up a big day, especially in Vermont. Phil Scott's inauguration day yesterday, going in again as the governor of Vermont now for a fifth term. So now we really have no better person to really talk about this than our political guru, Calvin Cutler. Calvin, thanks so much. And I see that you're already at the State House, and you got a busy day ahead of you. But good morning.
Yeah, good morning, John. Thanks so much for having me. Certainly a really big day yesterday,
Yeah.
bigger day today, and big days in the days and weeks to come.
Yeah, well, we'll get right to it. I know you're already there, but in your story yesterday, from kind of a follow from this morning, you said that Scott didn't mince words in that inaugural address. What were some of those driving points that he said there?
Yeah, I mean, I think in many ways it was a speech very familiar to Governor Phil Scott, touching upon, issues about, the urban rural divide, this conversation about two Vermonts that we continue to have, issues about affordability, issues about, holding the line on new spending. But the huge elephant in the room was that on average 14% property tax increase that we had last year, and the burden that is putting on working families, on elderly Vermonters, and on people all over the state, really. And the governor said, voters sent them a mandate, both Republicans and Democrats, saying that the current course that we are on right now as a state, both from an education, finance, and funding perspective, but also from a housing and demographics perspective, is not sustainable. The governor, of course, laid out data and talked about, the how we have people that are aging out of the workforce. We're expecting about 14,000 retirements every year over the next decade. Meanwhile, our working age population is shrinking, and there's a smaller pool of people shouldering more of the cost. And this is showing up whether it's in healthcare, education, many social services, you name it. And
Yeah.
so the governor really, it was a plea for help in some ways, or a really, going to Democrats who no longer control a supermajority. That's when I
Yeah.
say voters spoke and gave them a mandate.
Yeah.
They will now have to work with the governor to address some of these issues.
Yeah, and that kind of leads right into my next question here. Dems lose supermajority, and obviously there's now opportunity for a lot of compromise. What are some of those issues that you think that will be a hard compromise across party lines?
Yeah, it's really fascinating. And
Yeah.
even just this morning, I've been talking with some Democrats here at the State House about where can they find compromise? What will it look like? And what's fascinating is some of the issues, especially with education finance and some of the policy prescriptions that Governor Phil Scott put forward. It's not necessarily a partisan red, blue, black and white issue.
Yeah.
These strike at issues about big schools, small schools, rural Vermont, more urban settings as well. One of the big ideas that he pitched, first was he had a whole sort of housing package, if you will,
Yeah.
ideas to try to bolster housing. We can get into that in a little bit, but I think, one of the big, the biggest takeaways was he's like, number one, we need to look at the funding formula for schools, about how they are funded and how we put our budgets together, and essentially, how school budgets are made. He said we also need to look at school governance, and do we, with 83,000 students, do we really need over 50 supervisory unions
Yeah.
and over 100 school districts? So he talked about that. Talked a lot about class sizes. We have the lowest student to staff ratio in the country. I believe it's somewhere in the neighborhood of one student or one staff member to every 3 or 4 students. So these are some of the issues that Governor Phil Scott talked about. Where they'll be able to find compromise, I think that still remains to be seen.
Yeah.
Democrats by and large agree that this is a huge issue. They heard that mandate as well that voters gave them, and they are willing to come to the table. But I think where we're going to see and hear some concern is places in smaller towns,
Yeah.
school districts in small rural towns, or places where there might be layoffs or budget cuts, or there might be a school closure or consolidation.
Yeah.
These are, the governor even mentioned, these are going to be very, very difficult conversations that will, it's not just politics here, but it is really the identity in some ways of some small Vermont communities.
Absolutely. And I hate to circle back just a little bit here, but, again, in that story, you said, in the address, Scott had addressed saying many proposed reforms strike at the heart of local control. Is that kind of going back to, again, the education argument there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing about Vermont is, we have a storied tradition of local control, whether that be, your charter changes and your, city bylaws, or whether that's building your local town meeting day school budget and voting on it and having direct participatory democracy. That is a core value of many Vermont communities. Yeah. And some of these changes for cost containment or either containing the cost or bringing down costs entirely may chip away at that element of local control. Yeah. And so that is one of those areas where it could potentially be very difficult and very uncomfortable for state lawmakers. But Governor Scott said, they will have to be uncomfortable. And I think Lieutenant Governor John Rogers even mentioned it in his speech yesterday to the Senate as well, saying that the lawmakers are going to need to muster courage, because right now, if you look at the numbers about where our demographics are going, how the cost of education is rising, it's ballooned to over $2.3 billion, but yet our student population is continuing to shrink. They say something needs to change. So it's going to be really fascinating. And I think the big question is, what will they do this year? Can they make some of those difficult decisions, or will this, or will, when they put some of these ideas on the table, will they go sort of retreat? Will everybody retreat back to their sides and wait till the next election? We'll have to see.
Yeah. And I think that too, kind of just as an ending thought here, both the governor and Lieutenant Governor John Rogers have said they want to work across party lines, especially Rogers, who, is a former Dem going into the Republicans now. Both said yesterday, it's kind of echoing similar messages there. So, but it remains to be seen. But anyway, Calvin, thanks so much for hopping on today. And of course, I know you're already there, so I'll let you go and crack some eggs. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John. I really appreciate it. Have a happy Friday.
Yeah, you as well. Thanks, Calvin. Again, that was our Calvin Cutler. Big day yesterday in the Vermont State House. Phil Scott inaugurated as governor again. So we'll pull up his coverage from last night. This is Calvin last night.
Election that gave Governor Phil Scott and his Republican allies more influence. Governor Phil Scott, in front of a joint session of the legislature, didn't mince words. He called Vermont's education system broken and failing, and says that difficult decisions need to be made. Speaking to a standing room only joint session of the legislature, Governor Phil Scott outlined his vision for the state.
There are no silver bullets. No simple solutions to any of this.
Fresh off the heels of a November election where voters ousted the Democratic supermajority, Scott says voters are demanding a course correction.
We're here to do what Vermonters need. And they just sent a very clear message. They think we're off course.
The statewide education fund has ballooned to $2.3 billion. We have some of the lowest student-to-staff ratios and dozens of supervisory unions and school districts. Meanwhile, student enrollment is dropping and test scores are flat.
The bottom line is our system is out of scale and very expensive. And as obvious as these challenges are, we haven't been able to fix it.
Scott wants lawmakers to engage in a multi-year plan to make education funding sustainable, completely rewriting the school funding formula to contain costs, a shakeup of school governance, like school districts and supervisory unions, and guardrails to keep local school budgets in line.
Let's be the ones who make the difficult decisions to move towards the real change the system needs and our kids deserve.
Scott stresses along with the education reforms, lawmakers need to keep pushing on building more housing to expand our tax base and attract and retain young families to fill schools and revitalize communities by expanding tax credits for infrastructure, restoring dilapidated homes, and more exemptions for land use policies, all while holding the line on new spending and taxes.
Vermonters asked us very clearly to separate our wants from our needs and to fix, not just fund, issues that have a major impact on their lives.
Many of Scott's ideas may face opposition, whether from some in the Democratic majority or in the education community, and many of the proposed forms strike at the heart of local control, something he admits will be difficult, but necessary. Now, Governor Phil Scott also says he'll be putting forward ideas about public safety, climate resiliency, and addressing the cost of health care in the coming weeks. Now, we can expect to see the exact proposals and what the governor's team has in mind when he delivers his full budget address later this month. Reporting in Montpelier, Calvin Cutler, Channel 3 News.
Again, that was our Calvin Cutler there. Some great work yesterday at the Vermont State House. He's back there today, obviously. You can see more of his coverage on Channel 3 News tonight and on WCAX.com. But shifting gears here, Dave, you know, the past few days haven't been so great weather-wise. But we're starting to go to some nicer weather here, right?
Yeah, a little more comfortable out there. We, some areas did get a lot of snow during the week. Some spots over a foot of snow. I know that's great news for ski resorts, but it has been a little cold and also cold with wind chills. Those wind chills in the mountains in the 20s below zero. So we're heading in the right direction for a few days with some warmer temperatures out there. So right now, there may just be a few flurries, but that's pretty much it. Otherwise, we have a little bubble of high pressure, which is building in, and that will bring a pretty nice day for today with some sunshine out there, partly sunny skies. So that will be really nice. Let's see if I can zoom out with this. I'll give it a shot. Otherwise, there's a storm system down to the south, and that will bring just a little bit of light snow to southern parts of the region on Saturday. It's a big storm, but we'll just be grazed by it with light snow through Saturday afternoon. Then it will be winding down with a trace to maybe 2 inches accumulation. Temperatures are still pretty cold out there, though. Still 8 in Saranac Lake, not warming up too quickly. Most spots in the teens, a few 20s. 22 in Plymouth, 20 in Lebanon, 23 currently in Brattleboro. And it's not as blustery as Thursday, but still we have some cold wind chills, so I'm warning to keep the pets indoors. Still feels like 5 below for Saranac Lake, 4 below for Messina, but it won't be quite as brutal today with those wind chills improving a bit heading into the afternoon. So Saturday with that light snow, a widespread trace to 2 inches accumulation likely by mid-afternoon. That's when things start winding down. No big impacts with that storm system, but a few of the roads may be slippery, so just keep that in mind. So for the rest of this afternoon, we will have partly sunny skies, warmer, but not as blustery as Thursday, thankfully. Highs getting into the 20s. That's not too bad. Increasing clouds for tonight with light snow likely late after midnight toward daybreak. Lows will be falling into the teens. And then for Saturday, light snow is likely. Ending by late afternoon, most of us looking at a trace to possibly 2 inches accumulation. Highs getting into the 20s. Sunday will be a great day to enjoy the snow, skiing, or whatever. Pretty nice. Partly sunny skies, upper 20s, even some low 30s for highs. And mostly cloudy skies for Monday, but still, temperature-wise, pretty decent with highs getting into the low to mid-30s. No big storms during the week, but snow showers are likely Tuesday. May pick up a few inches accumulation, especially in the mountains. We'll keep an eye on it. Highs in the 20s. Mostly cloudy for Wednesday with some lingering snow showers. Highs in the 20s. Lows in the single digits and teens. And it does get a little colder late in the week, but not as cold as what we've had. Partly sunny skies on Thursday. At least we'll be holding in the low to mid 20s for highs. So pretty nice forecast over the weekend. A little light snow to Saturday.
Yeah, no, it's a nice kind of a reprieve from what we've had as of late. So
that's
good
true.
news.
And the snow won't be going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. Thank you guys for watching WCAX. Of course, you can see Channel 3 News at noon in just a couple hours. And and see all of our content on WCAX.com and our evening shows as well. But Dave, thanks for hopping by
No, absolutely.
these last couple of days.
My pleasure.
Yeah. All right. Take care.